Hello everyone, back again with film recaps. In this video I am going to recap one of the best movies. The movie is called Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. Before we get to the storyline, I wish everyone is well and I hope you have a great day. Let's get to the storyline. The film begins with a father telling his son the story of Peter Pan. After some time, a missing child poster is put up outside a circus where Peter Pan is performing on stage. Peter Pan points to a child in the audience and gives him balloons. A child lives alone with his mother in a house. One morning, his mother wakes him up from the couch and goes to freshen up. At the same time, the basement door opens slightly, and a strange man inside calls out to the child. The child starts to run away in fear, but the man corners him with his words and gestures for him to come closer. The man introduces himself as Peter Pan from the stories and lures the child, saying he will take him to the land of dreams where there are no mothers or rules. The child's mother overhears their conversation and rushes into the room, trying to save her child from Peter Pan. She manages to pull her child away and heads to the kitchen to grab a knife. She comforts her child and returns to the room, determined to kill Peter Pan. But Peter Pan, hiding under the table, launches a surprise attack on the mother and cuts off her foot. The mother tries to resist, and in his anger, Peter Pan tears her mouth apart. He throws her onto the table and stabs her repeatedly, then cuts her skull with the knife in a fit of brutality. He tears her skull apart with his bare hands. The mother screams in agony, covered in blood, but she is unable to defend herself. Peter Pan then turns his wounded face to the child, but no one knows what happens to the child after that. 15 years later, Michael is getting ready for school after having breakfast with his family. His sister suddenly remembers that it is Michael's birthday today. She rushes after him, stopping him from riding his bike and offers to drive him to school in their car. The scene shifts to an old mansion where a woman injects herself with fairy dust into her severely burned arm. At the same time, a man with a severely burned mouth brushes his teeth, causing him to cough and bleed. After preparing, both of them board the Neverland bus. The man enters a store and steps on a teddy bear on the floor, then picks up a strange mask from the display and puts it on the store owner, who had been watching him on camera. He approaches the men to ask him to pay for the mask, but the strange man turns around and brutally stabs the store owner in the throat with a knife, causing blood to spill everywhere. The store owner falls to the ground, dying. The store owner's blood splatters on the man's mask. The man calmly cleans the blood-stained knife with his coat and leaves the store, leaving the dying store owner behind. At school, Joey gives Michael a birthday gift, a picture of the two of them. During recess, Michael's sister waits for him outside the school where the Neverland bus is also parked. Wendy meets her friend, and they talk while Michael starts riding his bike home, unaware of the wire stretched across the road. He hits the wire, causing him to fall into the bushes. When he wakes up, he sees the Neverland bus parked in front of him. Michael starts to walk backward when the masked man from earlier calls out to him. Michael turns to run but trips and falls. The strange man screams, quickly grabs him, and takes him to the bus. Wendy waits for her brother outside the school in their car until evening. When she asks about Michael at the school reception, she is told that he has already left. At the same time, Michael finds himself trapped in a room with no phone signal. When the door opens, Michael quickly hides his phone. The masked man enters, carrying food, and removes his mask, revealing the severely burned left side of his face, making him look even more terrifying. He introduces himself as Peter Pan. He blames his mother for his disfigured state. Peter Pan tells Michael that when his mother did horrible things to him, he would close his eyes and advises Michael to do the same. Peter Pan tries to lure Michael with the promise of taking him to Neverland, a place where everything is like a dream. A police officer shows Michael's family footage from the school's security camera where Michael is seen leaving the school, but Wendy was distracted and didn't notice him. Meanwhile, Peter Pan makes a mysterious call to the family's telecommunications company. Creepy cartoon music plays before he tells them not to worry about Michael. While Michael lies on the bed crying and looking at a creepy doll in front of him, Peter Pan arrives and tells Michael to go to sleep. Before leaving, Michael gets up and runs after Peter Pan, entering a storage room filled with packed dolls of different characters. Michael tries to unlock the window by climbing on a box of toys, but his foot slips, and he falls. It seems like Peter Pan is about to emerge from one of the dolls. Michael gets up and starts examining the dolls when Peter Pan suddenly appears among them, scaring Michael, who falls to the ground. Peter Pan then throws Michael back into the room and notices the picture Joey had given him, mentioning bringing Joey to Michael. The next morning, Wendy meets Timmy's father, a lost boy who was with Joey and his sister. Timmy's father tells them that one day, Timmy was on his way home from school when he met Peter Pan, who gave him balloons and took him on the Neverland bus. Timmy never returned. A school bus drives by, and Peter Pan is seen fixing his Neverland bus on the side of the road. As the driver approaches him, Peter Pan hides a knife in his hand. In a horrifically violent act, Peter Pan brutally kills the driver by slitting his throat. Peter Pan then boards the school bus, removes his mask, and asks the children who wants to go to Neverland with him. The children scream and desperately try to escape from Peter Pan. In Peter Pan's hideout, Michael waits for phone signals in front of a television showing a documentary about crocodiles. He hides his phone when he hears footsteps approaching. Tinker Bell, who Peter Pan had held captive with the promise of turning her into a fairy using magic one day, as long as she followed his instructions. Meanwhile, Jan arrives at Wendy's place, terrified, and informs her about the school bus incident. On the same bus where Peter Pan was seen, the children were brutally killed and thrown into the woods. On the other side, Peter Pan returns home after killing the children and washes his blood-stained hands. He talks to himself, and a shadow appears on the wall. Peter Pan rises into the air. Tinker Bell arrives and asks Peter Pan about the children. Angrily, Peter Pan turns to her, questioning who she is to ask him questions. In a fit of rage, he lashes out and brutally beats Tinker Bell with a belt. Meanwhile, Wendy stays overnight at Joey's house. Peter Pan sits in the Neverland bus outside, looking at pictures of Joey and Michael. Wendy's phone dies as she watches the news. Everyone is asleep. Peter Pan tries to enter the house through the windows but fails. He then enters through the front door and approaches Joey's sister, who is sleeping on the couch. As she opens her eyes, Peter Pan stands in front of her, signals her to stay quiet, and stabs her brutally to death. Wendy charges her phone when she hears a scream. She opens the door and sees Joey's father lying on the ground, bleeding from his throat. Peter Pan appears and continues stabbing him. Wendy closes the door, packs her things, and hides somewhere. Peter Pan enters the room, covered in blood, and searches everywhere but can't find her. Wendy hides in the side exhibit and then sneaks into the room where Joey's dead father's body is outside. Mill approaches Wendy with tied hands and asks her to untie her. Peter Pan appears, and Wendy runs to the other side of the blood-covered bed. Peter Pan stabs Mill with a knife and then puts a polyethylene bag over her head, suffocating her. Mill dies, and Wendy watches from under the bed. Peter Pan looks at a family picture and leaves, believing he has killed everyone in the house except Joey. Wendy looks out the window and sees Peter Pan taking Joey away. Wendy's phone is dead, which is her mistake, as she should have kept it charged in case of emergencies, like Michael trying to call her or receiving news about him. Wendy quickly grabs her phone and charger, rushes down the stairs, and stumbles, falling near the brutally murdered, blood-covered body of her friend. Wendy grabs the cabinet keys and escapes the house, starting her car to chase Peter Pan's Neverland bus. Inside the bus, Peter Pan and Tinker Bell seem happy while Joey sits terrified and crying in the back seat. During the trip, morning arrives. Peter Pan brings Joey to his hideout, and Wendy, rushing inside, follows them and hides in a closet in Peter Pan's room. He enters the room to change his clothes, and Wendy quietly notices the scars on his body. Peter Pan gets ready and takes Joey to meet Michael. Joey is afraid that Peter Pan will hurt him, but Tinker Bell reassures him that Peter Pan will help and not harm him. Peter Pan lures Joey with the promise of Neverland. He asks who will go first and then reaches out his hand to Joey. Michael tries to stop Joey, but Joey believes Peter Pan's words and joins him. Michael gets up and chases after them, but Tinker Bell pushes him, causing him to fall. Michael cries, assuring him that Peter Pan is a liar. Meanwhile, Wendy enters the kitchen to charge her phone and freezes when she hears Peter Pan chasing Joey. Wendy picks up a knife and searches the house, reaching a room with a puzzle lock. She opens the lock, but Tinker Bell appears. Wendy asks Tinker Bell for help, saying she is there to bring her brother Michael home. Tinker Bell allows Wendy to enter the room where Peter Pan passes through. Wendy carries Joey and enters the room, searching but finding no one. Suddenly, Michael sneaks up behind her, and Wendy runs to hug her brother. In the kitchen, Tinker Bell looks worried. Peter Pan notices her concern and asks if everything is okay. He then brings a syringe and hands it to Tinker Bell. At that moment, Wendy's phone starts ringing as it charges. Peter Pan sees the phone and screams at Tinker Bell, asking who else is in the house. In the room, Wendy tries to escape with Michael, but Peter Pan approaches and finds the door unlocked. Wendy hides, and Peter Pan searches the room, terrifying Michael with his murderous ways. Wendy hides behind a giant teddy bear and then pushes it toward Peter Pan, escaping with Michael. But Tinker Bell catches up and grabs Wendy by the neck. Wendy reminds Tinker Bell of her family, and Tinker Bell becomes emotional, allowing Wendy and Michael to escape. Peter Pan arrives and interrogates Tinker Bell, but she leaves without answering. Michael hides under the kitchen table, and Wendy passes through a secret passage. Michael finds Wendy's phone and calls emergency services. Tinker Bell and Peter Pan enter the kitchen. Tinker Bell confronts Peter Pan, accusing him of betraying her. Meanwhile, Wendy reaches a shed and finds a coffin with a lantern inside. She opens the coffin and reveals Joey inside. In the kitchen, Peter Pan brutally attacks Tinker Bell, breaking her arm and throwing her to the ground. He then cuts off her arm with a knife. Tinker Bell screams in agony as Peter Pan mercilessly injures her. Michael, hiding under the table, witnesses the horrifying scene. Peter Pan then cuts off Tinker Bell's other arm. On the other side, Wendy breaks the window and rescues Joey, telling him to run without looking back. Joey escapes, and Wendy returns to find a picture of a child on the floor moving forward, confronting a scary man who screams, alerting Peter Pan. Michael, hiding under the table, kicks Peter Pan's leg and escapes. Peter Pan tries to catch him, but Michael kicks him again and runs away. On the other side, Wendy escapes from the tied-up man and, in a horrific state, looks terrified. The ghost of the man pleads with Wendy for help. She wants to help him but prioritizes saving Michael when she hears Peter Pan's voice and runs away. As Wendy enters the passage, Peter Pan attacks her from behind, causing her to fall. To save herself, Wendy tries to pull herself back. Peter Pan tries to grab her, but Wendy kicks him. Peter Pan pounces on Wendy, and she scratches his face in revenge. Peter Pan bites Wendy's fingers, causing her to scream in pain. With great effort, Wendy frees herself and runs to the kitchen, grabbing things and throwing them at Peter Pan. Peter Pan lifts Wendy and throws her onto the table, where she falls next to Tinker Bell. Tinker Bell, with great difficulty, encourages Wendy, who is furious. Peter Pan steps on Tinker Bell's mouth and crushes her until she dies. Wendy picks up the syringe from the ground and stabs Peter Pan in the neck as he attacks her, causing his vision to blur. A cartoon shadow appears on the wall, pointing to Wendy, who struggles to get up and enters the room filled with dolls. But she steps on broken glass, causing her to bleed. Wendy removes the glass from her shoe and bandages her hand using the faucet. Meanwhile, Peter Pan rushes into the room and sees the blood and Wendy's shoe prints on the floor. He smashes the dolls with a rod. The dollhouse lights up and plays music, and Peter Pan enters it. Wendy attacks Peter Pan from behind and escapes while Michael hides in the whisper room. Peter Pan approaches the door facing Michael. Michael slams the door hard into Peter Pan's face, causing him to fall. Michael tries to escape, but Peter Pan, with a mouth full of blood, attacks him and starts choking him. Wendy arrives from behind and chokes Peter Pan's neck with a stick. Peter Pan frees himself and attacks Wendy, but she throws a cabinet at Peter Pan and escapes. Wendy has a piece of glass stuck in her neck, causing her to bleed. She is in pain as she removes the glass from her neck. Peter Pan then arrives, and despite her injuries, she engages in a fierce fight with him. As Peter Pan falls, he picks up a nearby mask and puts it on, asking Wendy for help. But Wendy is not fooled by his trick and starts hitting him with a stick. Peter Pan takes the stick from Wendy and throws it away. Wendy then pushes her thumbs into Peter Pan's eyes, causing him to scream in pain. He grabs Wendy's injured neck, making her scream in pain. At that moment, Michael arrives from behind and hits Peter Pan with a stick, causing him to fall. Michael then hits Peter Pan's mask with the stick, further disfiguring his face. Seeing Michael's anger, Wendy calls her brother to her side and hugs him. Peter Pan, covered in blood, tries to get up again, but Wendy tells him to go to Neverland alone. The captive man from the basement then appears and sees Peter Pan's death. He quickly stabs Peter Pan and drags him away. As Wendy sits covered in blood with Michael hiding in her lap, the sound of police sirens can be heard. The film ends with Michael's family celebrating his birthday. But Wendy receives a mysterious phone call on her phone that only plays Peter Pan's music, unsettling her. If you enjoyed this film, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.